Good morning, folks. Welcome to Community Church of Boston. October 26th, we light the candle of hope and unity and friendship and remembrance. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed, sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles, from her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands your storied pomp, cries she, with silent lips, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore, send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I will lift my lamp beside the golden door. And she welcomes them with open arms. She says, let my people in. Shine on, oh, you lady of the harbor. That poem, of course, from Emma Lazarus on the Statue of Liberty, and that refrain at the end, the song of Joe Jenks called Lady of the Harbor. We open with that for the theme of today, which is immigration and the horrible things that are happening to our tradition and our foundation of immigrants in this country. We welcome from Florida, Rod McDonald. He's a frequent traveler to Community Church by virtue of the virtual airwaves. We'd love to host you, Rod, as soon as we can for a real live in-person event. We'd love to have you in Boston sometime very soon, but this shall do in the meantime. Folks, welcome Rod McDonald.
Thank you, Dean. Well, I went to the No Kings rally last week in Kingston, New York. I was up in the New York State area doing some concerts, and I was just working on this song when I went to it, and I don't know. I think it maybe what kind of inspired the mood of it for myself, but it just one of those songs that kind of fell together very quickly, and so let's sing a new song for you folks today. I don't care what party you're in, I don't care what you're trying to do. If you're just here to keep people from voting, brother, you're bound to lose. Brother, you're bound to lose. I don't care if you don't like what I say, or how much somebody's paying you. If you're not here for my right to speak freely, brother, you're bound to lose. Brother, you're bound to lose. I don't care how much money you have, or how much better you think that makes you. If you're getting rich, making other people suffer, it'll take you down one way or the other. You are. I don't care who you're praying to. If you're disrespecting the beliefs of others, brother, you're bound to lose. care how much power you have or what enemies you plan to pursue. If you're not here for everybody's freedom, brother, you're bound to lose. Brother, you're bound to lose. Thank you. A rare short song for me.
Sounds so nice. Brand new song. You keep coming up with them over and over, and I just admire and love you for that. Couple of just announcements. We have, of course, our newsletter, which we're slowly getting through, and we're down to almost the last page. We almost time for a new one. But tomorrow we have, not tomorrow, next Sunday, amazing program. That would be Max Blumenthal. I happen to have a collection of 4 of his books that we have here in the library. One that I donated a long time ago. It's called Republican Gomorrah. It's about the Christian megachurch right. He wrote it in the early 90s. Goliath, Life and Loathing in Greater Israel. The 51-Day War. That's about like three wars ago. Not to mention the one that is a genocide now in Gaza. And the most recent one that we acquired, I love because it's from 2019 and it's called The Management of Savagery. And the reason I love this is because we inherited it from the late Joan Livingston, our beloved member and friend and fiance to our treasurer, Charlie Welch. And I wish you could see what it looks like. Joan worshipped Max Blumenthal. If you take it by how closely she wrote notes, and I'm just going to get this close to the camera to show you. And that's way deep into the book, not just the first few pages, which is what seems to happen to me when books come in. Too many of them come in, and the different authors that speak at Community Church. I wish I could read everything, but I can't. Max is with us next Sunday. The Sunday after that, we have Matthew Ho, who is a disabled vet, and that's Armistice and the Empire is his talk. I'll tell you that music that day is by a long time friend of mine, Dennis Pern, who has been on the music scene in Boston for a whole long time. After that, November 16th, Richard Wolff, economist, who has been with us a number of times, has become sort of an annual presence, kind of like the way Noam Chomsky and Howard Zinn used to be with us every year during the 80s. And music by Magpie, our great repeat offender friends at Community Church who join us virtually from upstate New York. That's just a few things, and there's more to talk about, even greater, but I will leave it at that. And to go to our other next little ritual, which is the reading from Eduardo Galeano for October 26th. I haven't read it yet, so it's always a surprise. This is called Children of the Days, A Calendar of Human History by Eduardo Galeano. It has an entry for every day. Oh, this is a very short one, and a very apt one for what's going on. October 26th, War for Drugs. After 20 years of cannon fire and thousands upon thousands of dead Chinese, Queen Victoria sang her victory song. China, which had banned drugs, opened its doors to the opium sold by British merchants. While the imperial palaces burned, Prince Gong signed the surrender in 1860. It was a victory for freedom, freedom of commerce, that is. Eduardo Galeano. And of course, we happen to have some other books. On the subject of books, we had a big, huge used book sale to reduce our own inventory of our mountain of books here at the community church. Charlie Welch, thank you for spearheading that. It was right on the sidewalk, and right next to a line of people who are waiting in line to get sandwiches from our new restaurant, which has really batted it out of the park and is doing very, very well on the first floor. It's called Al Antico Vinayo, and they make really good sandwiches out of really fresh bread right out of the oven. Come check them out sometime. I happen to have two books by recent speakers. One who is about to speak again, that would be Sarah Towle, Crossing the Line, Finding America in the Borderlands. We're going to hear more about that from Sarah. And also Christian Nill, who talked to us 2 weeks ago, Walking with Evaristo, a memoir of celebration and tragedy in the land of the Achimaya, memoir of his time in the Peace Corps in the early 80s during the height of the worst part of the genocide of indigenous people in Guatemala, early 80s. What else do I have in the show and tell? Oh, yes. My hat, which I took off. People say, don't wear a hat. We can't see your face. The USS Liberty. The survivors are the recipients of our 2025 Sacco and Vanzetti Award, which will be awarded on December 14th. The USS Liberty, which was bombed, torpedoed, and napalmed by Israel in 1967, and it was no accident, as they claimed afterwards. It was very intentional intent to try and sink it and blame it on Egypt in a false flag operation. We'll hear from a couple of the survivors. One will be here live. His name is Mick. What is your last name? And the other who will join us from Colorado is named Phil Turney. So, and the other recipient, we're trying to find the right person to represent them on December 14th, is the flotilla, the Sumud flotilla. We haven't gotten to Greta Thunberg yet, but we have some leads for some other people who might join us on that Sunday. Maybe Greg Stoker, maybe a couple of brothers from Western Mass who are on the flotilla who can talk their experiences and receive the award on behalf of the Sumud flotilla. So that's a few little announcements for you. And let's bring back Rod for what we call the musical message. A couple of songs from Rod McDonald. Thank you, Rod, for joining us this morning.
There we go. Sorry. Started talking, forgot to turn my mic on. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. I was talking to a friend about what I might sing today, and she recommended I sing this older song of mine, a little historical perspective, perhaps. It's from about 1985 or so, and it's maybe a little earlier than that, and it's on my second LP, White Buffalo, which is available these days on a USB flash drive on my website. But I'm not trying to hawk product. I just wanted to mention that this song ended up being the reason the album got made, because the person who was the main driving wheel behind it said that this was the one song that really mattered to him the most. And so I thought that even though the references in it are probably a little bit out of date, it's messages. Probably hasn't changed very much at all. Oh, I'd like to give a welcome to the Shah of Iran, Ferdinand Marcos, President of Vietnam. The United States extends you a hearty welcome hand. And why do we send back Rosalita and Roseanne? Oh, I know their government has become our cause. We sell them their weapons, we finance their wars. And when the innocent come to our fine peaceful land, why do we send back Rosalita and Roseanne? Oh, there's a church up on Broadway where something gets done, and they give sanctuary to those on the run. But the United States, it just won't understand, and it wants to deport Rosalita and Roseanne. Yeah, I believe in the Bible. I've seen where it reads, when a hungry one knocks, give him something to eat. But with so many hungry, how can we take them all in? When they're standing at your door, how can you send them away again? But hey, did I ask for the Shah of Iran? Anastasia Somoza, President of Vietnam. Let's hear it for sanctuary. How about a hearty hand? And why do we send back Rosalita and Roseanne? Thank you. Well, here's a newer song. This is from my most recent CD, Rants and Romance. And Bostonian Robin Bateau played a little violin on this on the record. It's a song for these times, I think. Hey, I am not you, I am me. You are not me, you are you. Is there a we in there? I'd like to know, so I could have some idea where this can go. I remember when you were just like me. We thought we were so wild and free. Now here we are, surrounded by this wall of noise. What happened to you? What happened to me? Yes, I am you as you are me, as you are we, as we are all together. The Beatles said that, and no doubt it's true. I know what's happened to me. Hey, what's happened to you? deserve it. Are you one of them? Downtown, the water is covering the city streets. Some say it's an illusion. Are you one of them? Proven liars are occupying the halls of justice. Some say it's better. Are you one of them? Billionaires are buying the West while millions go hungry. Some say it's their right. Are you one of them? Well, I am not you, I am me. You are not me, you are you, and I can't ignore the things you want to do. I know what's happened to me, but hey, what's happened to you? I know what's happened to me, but hey, what happened to you? I know what's happened to me, but hey, what happened to you? Thank you.
Thanks, Rod. Beautiful songs, Rod MacDonald. Boy, those names out of history. The Shah, President II, Somoza. Oof. Those are the ones we welcome with open arms. We're so glad that Sarah is back with us. We were together in person just 3 weeks ago for a what we called a teach-in, immigration teach-in, and we had a really wonderful audience of people here in the auditorium. And Sarah was with us in person, so we really appreciate that you're back again, and from Philadelphia this time, doing a book tour for this really impressive book, Crossing the Line: Finding America in the Borderlands. And by way of introduction, I just want to read a paragraph from the back of the book. It was family separation and, quote, kids in cages, unquote, that drove Sarah Towle to the U.S. southern border. On discovering the many-headed hydra that is the U.S. immigration system and the heroic determination of those caught under its knee, she could never look away again. Crossing the Line charts Sarah's journey from outrage to activism to abolition as she exposes, layer by broken layer, the global deterrence to detention to deportation complex that is failing everyone save the profiteers and demagogues who benefit from it. That's a fitting introduction to Sarah. And we welcome you. Thank you for joining us again. Sarah Towle.
Thank you, Dean. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. I hope those of you who might have been with us on the 9th don't mind hearing my talk again. It's basically the same with some variations. But I am super honored to be here. This is part of my multi-state speaking tour, where I'm talking about what might be the most urgent and pressing challenge of our age, immigration. And I say that because immigration really intersects with almost everything every challenge that we're dealing with today, from climate change to corporate corruption to government corruption to the acceleration of artificial intelligence that has resulted in the growing surveillance state that is the United States. to labor, to human rights, to the dissolution of human rights values. And that is why I say that it is immigration that has been weaponized, has been harnessed as the weapon by the Trump regime to drive US democracy into crisis. So I'm going to start today by telling you a little bit about me and who I am and how I came to write this book, what I learned in the process. And then I'm going to end with a call to action, one that I believe aligns with the good trouble of the folks of the Community Church of Boston, and what I hope will inspire those of you who are not yet members of the resistance to join as of today. So I basically am an economic migrant, though I get to call myself an expat or expatriate because of my white skin and my blue passport. I've lived away from the United States more than I've lived in the United States at this point in my life. I've made a career of offering welcome to newcomers and dignity to asylum seekers on 4 continents across the age span and in myriad classroom contexts, including under the trees in refugee settings, such as in El Salvador during the US-funded Central American Dirty Wars, also in New York during the sanctuary movement. That said, I never really understood the depth of the brokenness of our immigration system until 2018, when the first Trump regime sparked the cries of a 6-year-old, little Alison Jimena Valencia Madrid. And I'm sure you remember them too, because these were cries that were heard round the world. A small child made to memorize a phone number in a moment of panic when her mother realized they were about to be pulled apart. A 6-year-old made to grow up all too fast, begging a Border Patrol official to please call her auntie, reciting a phone number over and over and over again through veils of tears, while other children sobbed in the background and the agent laughed off their heartbreak, calling it an orchestra without a conductor. Now, that muffled 8-minute recording was taken from the pocket of a whistleblower, somebody inside the Ursula Processing Center in McAllen, Texas. And I put processing in quotes because whether we call them processing centers or detention centers or use some hideous moniker that perpetuates the stereotypes and tropes of criminality like alligator Alcatraz, these are facilities that are encased in coils and coils and coils of razor wire, itself a tool that was designed to shred human flesh. These are facilities that exist to cage people. They are prisons. They are concentration camps. And they are locking up people who have largely committed no crime. Unless you believe that running for your life and asking for protection in another land is a criminal act. And it is not. It is all our legal and human right. But in the USA today, seeking asylum has become conflated with illegality. So first and foremost, we need to pull those things apart. Now, many, if not most of those individuals that we have incarcerated in these places come to the United States, the self-styled beacon of hope, seeking a safer and more productive life for themselves and their children, which, as I said, is their international legal and human right. Some of them have been with us for years. Many grew up here, built careers here, created families here. They are no less baseball and apple pie than you and me. But few of us knew anything about the conditions inside these facilities before hearing Alison Jimena's cries. And when we did hear them, what did we do? We rose up in collective indignation, sparked by spontaneous action, sparked by outrage. We marched. In those horrifying days of June 2018, we marched under the banner of Families Belong Together. I'm sure you were there. I'm sure you marched with me too. And we thought that was a lot of marches, right? It was something like 750 demonstrations across the country, record numbers of people in the streets. And that pales by comparison to what we saw last week for No Kings. And indeed, on June 20th, 2018, family separation was supposedly ended by presidential Sharpie, but it never really ended, and it didn't start with him. That's just when it was made policy, not a consequence of policy, and put on display for the cameras by an administration that wanted to be cruel, that wore US immigration cruelty like a badge of honor. But in my research for this book, I would come to document 8 ways in which our immigration policies and practices separate families and have done so for decades across administrations on both sides of the political aisle. And today, every time ICE raids a workplace or drags someone from their car or knocks down the door of a private home or rappels from a helicopter as if it's a war zone into a city, onto a building, and commences smashing out windows, families are torn apart. Loved ones are separated, maybe forever. Now, I did not know in June 2018 that family separation was a feature, not a bug of the US immigration system. I had a lot to learn, but family separation was the inciting incident that propelled me on a journey to the border that resulted in a 2,000-mile exit or odyssey across the US-Mexico line, and that ended up with this book. Crossing the Line, Finding America in the Borderlands begins in a refugee encampment just across the Rio Grande from Brownsville, Texas, on the threshold of the world's richest nation, an encampment of about 3,000 people representing 70,000 people, 70,000 mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and aunties and uncles and grandparents and tiny babies and little kids. 1/3 of the population were little kids, like Alice and Jimena. These are children. They were no threat to anyone, certainly not to US national security. But yet they were trapped in some of the most dangerous places on earth by the first Trump administration's migrant protection protocols, which you may remember as the Remain in Mexico program. And I put protection in quotes because it didn't protect anyone at all. The book ends on 2 mass deportation flights, literally on the flights. And these flights at the time were dubbed death planes by some. They were dubbed boxcars in the sky by others. They were also called flying Abu Ghraibs by me. These mass deportation flights took place in 2020 during the first of Trump and Co.'s mass deportation campaigns, the one that very few people knew about, but which I accidentally discovered while I was researching my book, and which is documented in my book. And it illuminates what is happening today as the second Trump regime turns mass deportations into a daily fact of life. How? By harnessing Department of Homeland Security enforcement agencies as private paramilitaries for a wannabe strongman, complete with masked men bearing arms rather than judicial warrants. My book is one of only 2 public accounts that I know of to document what actually takes place on an ICE air expulsion flight, because previous administrations did not want us to know the myriad legal and human rights violations that are being committed by our government every day. This one does. This one doesn't mind if we know, but here I am here to tell you that they defy faith values. They defy democratic values. They defy moral values. They defy human decency. What's happening in our name has crossed the line, powered by cruelty for cruelty's sake. And the cruelty is not okay. Some have called Crossing the Line the primer text to the immigration issue because it's sort of a vast survey. It covers everything, and then you can dig into my bibliography to go deeper into the issue. Others have called it, I made it available online for everybody, the bibliography. Some others have called it a handbook for a more humane world because it holds up to the light the tales and voices of roughly 100 people, including those of individuals trapped under the knee of this cruel system, but also those of the first responders, folks who have been tirelessly waging a war, a grassroots war of welcome for years, and who collaborated with me to have their stories told in this book, which is why I say it was written not so much by me as through me. Last November, however, literally overnight, the handbook, which was supposed to be a historical chronicle, transformed into what more and more people are calling a manual for a movement. The movement, a movement that recognizes that we need in the United States a just migration system, a system that welcomes folks with dignity and not with cruelty. So, as I said, I had many mentors and guides on this journey of awakening, these folks who became my story collaborators, who would guide me in learning just how horrible and cruel and what a wretched place our immigration system has created. These were folks who were once, like me, compelled to bear witness to the human costs of our immigration system. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. So they could never, ever look away again. And they're not heroes. They're just ordinary people like you and me expressing extraordinary acts of kindness every day. Some of them are right there in the room with you, I'm sure. And they show us every day that there is a better way, that we can welcome newcomers with dignity. And in fact, we'd be a much better nation and people for it. So it's these first responders, these warriors of welcome, as I call them, who I believe are providing the answers to the seemingly intractable situation we find ourselves in, not just in the US, but worldwide. I feel that we need only look to them to discover who we can be, who we should be, who we must be, and who many of us believe we already are. Yet across the nation, particularly under this new Trump regime, they are being intimidated, vilified, even criminalized for their kindness. And the criminalization of caregivers and newcomers alike has been amped up by degrees by the second Trump regime as more and more people who are trying to migrate the so-called right way, who are trying desperately, who want to follow the rules, are being labeled the worst of the worst without proof and being kidnapped off our streets, out of their homes, from their work sites, from their ICE check-ins, from their ICE hearings, from their places of worship, from their kids' schools, and trafficked in chains to prison camps, 80% of which are run for profit. When I went to the border to see for myself the inhumanity I then believed had been wrought by Trump and co., the first Trump and co. regime, I crossed a threshold into a world that I did not perceive before June 2018, but whose creation I have come to understand began right around the time of my birth and grew up all around me, all around all of us, hiding in plain sight, just outside our privileged view. The world is called the border industrial complex. It is the offspring of the Cold War era military industrial complex and the sibling of the post 9/11 national security state. The border industrial complex encircles the globe like a second equator, cleaving the wealthy, predominantly white world from the less wealthy, less white one, creating a global apartheid, where borders, which have always been tools of in-group, out-group exclusion and are therefore inherently racist, are growing deeper and taller and angrier and more violent all the time. When the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, for example, there were about 12 such barriers around the world. And those of you who were alive at that time will remember it, I hope, as I do, which was that it was a time of hope. The Cold War was finally over. We didn't have to wake up every day wondering if this was the last day before nuclear annihilation. We thought we were moving toward a kinder, more inclusive and diverse era, the promise of the civil rights movement. But today there are some 80 walls all over the world and counting. So my first learning, once inside the world of the border industrial complex, was that it did not begin with Trump. He and his acolytes had been enabled by presidential administrations before them on both sides of the political aisle to simply crank the cruelty of the system to 11. Their first time around, This time they're sending that cruelty off the charts. But the cruelty of the US immigration system is not their shame alone. I encountered 7 deadly specters inside the border industrial complex, which I'll recount for you now. The first is, as I mentioned, this bipartisan project dating back decades to extend our borders across oceans and through deserts and deep into other national territories as a way to make end runs around the 1951 Refugee Convention. That document, born of the shame of turning Jewish refugees back to their deaths in Nazi concentration camps, became the international treaty governing the global refugee protection regime. The prescriptions of the Refugee Convention were written into US law in 1980 under Carter as the 1980 Refugee Act, which again means that requesting asylum is never illegal and asylum seekers can never be illegals. But though we have the 1980 Refugee Act should be considered the law of the land, Jimmy Carter's successors, Reagan and Bush, were already flouting it even before the ink was dry on the legislation. They were flouting it by pushing Haitian asylum seekers back to the harms they fled, or diverting them to a concentration camp erected to hold them at the US military base on Cuba's Guantanamo Bay. The second specter includes a 100-mile policing zone. Now, most of us consider that 100-mile policing zone to be part of the US Southwest. But in fact, it traces the entire perimeter of our nation, 100 miles in from the seas, 100 miles in from our land borders. This zone consumes 2/3 of the US population. 9 of our 10 largest cities, including Chicago, LA, New York, Philly, where I am right now, Boston, these are all part of the borderlands. Most of Florida, 6 whole states by my count, including most of Florida, as well as the District of Columbia. It is the jurisdiction of a 60,000 member force and counting that knows no transparency. And since Trump dissolved its civil rights and civil liberties team, this force now suffers no accountability and almost really never did. You know, the CRCL department was there only to give prescriptions, not to actually give remediation. And this is troubling because these were the troops that were turned on all of us during the Black Lives Matter protests of the summer of 2020. And it is one of the forces being turned on us now in 2025. Now, I'm not talking about ICE. I'm talking about Customs and Border Protection, which includes the Border Patrol, who, owing to a series of dubious 1970s Supreme Court decisions, have the right to police via racial profiling. And they do every day. And the Supreme Court under John Roberts just gave ICE latitude to do the same. For now, their ability to racially profile is supposedly limited to LA. But we know that's just another of many slippery slopes in Trump's USA. And though racial profiling is not necessarily felt by people directly by people who look like me, it does compromise all our constitutional protections to unlawful searches and seizures under the Fourth Amendment. Again, a slippery slope. The third specter is the counterpart to the Customs and Border Protection, whose policing is supposed to be limited to the interior of the country. I'm talking about ICE, a 20,000 member force that will be 30,000 members as soon as Nome and Homan are able to realize their current recruitment campaign. Now, even 30,000 agents might not sound like enough to police the entire interior of a country as large as the United States. But ICE works in collaboration with local police forces, thanks to agreements dating to 1952 and upheld under the Clinton administration in 1996 that deputize cops to do ICE's work for them. These are called 287G agreements, and they allow ICE and local police entities to state they're only going after criminals, and felons. But here's the thing. Under the same law that houses these 287G agreements, the law that is known by its acronym IRA, what might be a misdemeanor crime for you and me, like shoplifting or speeding or driving with a busted taillight, can be spun into an aggravated felony, criminalizing you and turning you, if you are among the 12 million people currently living in the United States who has never been afforded a path to citizenship, into something called a deported illegal alien, landing you in mandatory detention until your deportation, your expulsion, can be realized. So many of our friends and neighbors and colleagues and family members have been returned to places they never ever knew because of these laws. And that includes, as I alluded to before we began, that includes 94,000 veterans of our armed forces and counting. People who were willing to give their life for this country, who were led to believe that if they served, they would have a place in the American experiment. Gone because of a misdemeanor crime. Now, ICE too knows no transparency or accountability. They never have, though agency acts of routine violence, brutality, and impunity are legion and well documented. The agency has now been harnessed by an administration with authoritarian aspirations like a paramilitary army. And under the legislation, the occupant of the White House calls beautiful, what I call the MAGA murder mandate, ICE and CBP have now been bequeathed a budget bigger than the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, the Marshal Service, and the Bureau of Prisons combined. To put that in another frame, that's a budget bigger than most national militaries. Only the US, Russian, and Chinese militaries enjoy a bigger purse. That's $170 billion, our money that's coming from our tax dollars. The fourth specter, both ICE and CBP operate under the Department of Homeland Security, whose roots can be traced back to the slave patrols of the pre-Civil War era through one man, Jefferson Milton Davis, the son of a Confederate enslaver from Florida. He became the first ever US Border Patrol agent after cutting his teeth as a Texas Ranger, itself a product of the Ku Klux Klan, which is what the slave patrols became when the Civil War put an end to the ownership and lifelong enforced imprisonment of our fellow human beings. These are the rotten foundations upon which our Department of Homeland Security apparatus is built. And I put security in quotes because do you feel secure with ICE in your cities? I don't. The Department of Homeland Security is quite simply a white supremacist institution that has been infiltrated by white supremacists, and it enjoys unchecked power as well as a largely unlimited purse. The fifth specter of the border industrial complex includes ICE prisons, more than 200 of them. We'll call them prisons, we'll call them concentration camps, because that's really what they are. 80% of these are run for profit by contractors like Geo Group and Core Civic, paid with our tax dollars to lock up a quota of peace-seeking people on any given day. On 9/11, that quota was about 5,000. Under Obama, it expanded to 35,000, which was already too many. Under Biden, boosted it again to 41,500. Today, there are more than 61,000 people locked away and counting because Tom Homan, Stephen Miller, and Kristi Noem, people we did not elect, are committed to taking that quota to 100,000 or more as soon as they possibly can. And guess what? They have a $45 billion budget earmarked expressly to build more facilities to incarcerate people who have mostly committed no crime. And that is a genie that is not going to be easily stuffed back into its bottle. These people, the people that they're incarcerating, 70%, we now have data that proves that 70% of the people that they're arresting and, or let's call it what it is, kidnapping and incarcerating, have committed no crime. Zero crimes. They might have overstayed a visa. They might have entered without inspection. These are not criminal acts, they're civil misdemeanors. Some came for work and remained trapped by our walls, our bureaucratic walls, if not our physical ones. Some were carried here in the arms of a loved one, but the vast majority came to the so-called exemplar of freedom and beacon of hope, seeking safety from harm, horror, and hunger, only to be shackled, wrists in cuffs, ankles manacled, everything tied into a waist chain, thrown into a jumpsuit, color-coded for alleged crime, red if they think you're a terrorist, and locked up in prison for profit. It is the very definition of enslavement. Trump and co. are imprisoning, are enslaving criminals, they say, to facilitate their mass deportation effort, they say. But what they're really doing is enriching their cronies, the prison profiteers, the Geo Group and Core Civic and LaSalle Corrections and others. And these folks, because the bottom line is more important to them than human rights, are systematically denying folks adequate food, access to legal protection, medical care, contact with their families, because detention is their point. And their prisons are largely black sites, like the Everglades concentration camp. I insist that we call it what it is. Like Guantanamo Bay, a place synonymous with torture. Like Sacat, the El Salvadoran torture prison that we paid Nayib Bukele $6 million to enslave Kilmar, Abrego, Garcia, among others, whose criminal record has yet to be established. And even if it was, we should not be treating people this way. There are international laws and protections. There are human rights conventions. We should not be kidnapping people and renditioning them to a lifetime of imprisonment, whether in domestic or external torture chambers. Human rights are being violated in our name, and the cruelty is not okay. The sixth specter is the for-profit transportation machinery that serves the prison machinery. These are buses, all of them blackened windows. These are armored jails on wheels. These are costly military transports. These are chartered airplanes that are provided by companies like Global X and Avello, Omniair International, and others. These are the airport fixed-based operators that support the activities. They do the hangaring, they do the taxiing, they do the gassing of these planes. There are pilot and flight attendant unions. They are complicit in aiding the ICE air machine. There are restraining device manufacturers, all those cuffs that have to be purchased by ICE, including a company called Safe Restraints, whose full body apparatus called the RAP, which forces compliance on the many through the torture of the few, I accidentally uncovered while researching this book. ICE airplanes whisk peace-seeking people away, and ICE agency crimes along with them, in daily expulsion missions that return folks in need of safety, always in shackles and chains, to the very harms and horrors they fled, or to third countries the regime claims are safe, like Sudan, which has been creating refugees for years. These are places that folks never, ever set foot in. Places they never knew, places where they know no one, places where they may not speak the language, where they will struggle to earn a living, where they may be separated from their families and unable to get back forever. The cruelty is not okay. And in this world, the seventh specter, in this world of the border industrial complex, our legal obligations on the part of folks seeking safety and a dignified life per their international and human rights play out every day in kangaroo courts, which have so compromised the promise of due process under the law that one immigration judge once likened her job to hearing death penalty cases in traffic court-like settings. I can attest that I've been to a fair few, and they are traffic court-like settings where you are considered guilty or unworthy until you can prove that indeed you do require protection. When denied, as so many are, if they get to see a judge at all, as so few do, especially since this regime is firing the immigration judges that are trained to do their job and replacing them with Department of Defense or justice judges that don't, they are deported in chains back to the harms and horrors they fled or to the harms and horrors they've yet to perceive for profit. The cruelty is not okay. Now, this entire Rube Goldberg machine, the many-headed Hydra, as I call it, or the Goliath of the border industrial complex, was built on the foundations of a single theory. It's called prevention through deterrence, but I prefer to call it deterrence through cruelty, because the theory posits that if we make migration to the United States as dangerous and difficult and painful and perilous as possible, those who survive it, and many don't, will send word back home. They'll say, do not come, do not come. But people continue to come because prevention through deterrence does not work. It has never worked. And we should know this by now because it is over 31 years old. It was enacted on October 1st, 1994, 9 months after the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, opened the borders to the free and unfettered movement of goods and money. This is when our corporations, our manufacturing plants, our extractive industries, our monoculture agricultural concerns were incentivized to go south in search of low wages, no environmental protections, and low to no taxation. This is also when the State Department, having done a feasibility study, realized that this would cause human displacement and drive people northward. So prevention through deterrence began, kicked off by a militarized mission called Operation Gatekeeper, which continued the process of sealing the border to people. So I emphasize this because the Fox News narrative of Biden's open borders was pure bunk. The process of sealing the border to people began in the 1880s with the Chinese Exclusion Act, which didn't even try to hide its racism behind clever language. It was concretized in the 1920s during Prohibition with the birth of the Border Patrol. It was accelerated in the later decades of the 20th century with such border externalization efforts as pushing Haitian asylum seekers back to Haiti or to Guantanamo Bay, as well as Operation Gatekeeper. And then it became supercharged after 9/11 with the so-called War on Terror. It is now policy under Trump and co. But all prevention through deterrence has ever done is exact tremendous misery and harm. Untold numbers of peace-seeking people have died or disappeared because of it. The Sonoran Desert, my friends, is a graveyard. The Caribbean Sea is a graveyard, especially now that, boats are just being bombed out of the water with no obvious reason. Prevention through deterrence is an abject failure, a deadly, destructive policy that has never worked and can never work. Why? Because for as long as there have been people on this planet, we have moved. It's part of our human story. Unless you hail from indigenous roots, and sometimes even then, todos somos migrantes. Unless your ancestors were themselves kidnapped and brought here across the Middle Passage in chains, todos somos migrantes. Your people likely fled harm, horror, or hunger just as mine did. Or they moved toward better, because that's what we do. We move toward better. We move toward opportunity. We move, as I have been allowed to do for the whole of my expatriate career. Now, I know this all sounds dire, and it is, with the current regime that is currently occupying the White House, which they are now destroying. But in the world of the border industrial complex, I also found hope. I found hope in the mentors and guides you will meet in the pages of my book if you read it or listen to it. and I hope you will. I found hope in the people, who I've met as I've traversed the United States, speaking to groups such as yours. They are the folks that the myriad helpers everywhere across the line and all over our 50 states that have been willing to stand up for humanity in the face of what is truly a manufactured crisis, a crisis 100% made in the USA, a crisis that deliberately traps the world's most vulnerable people, borrowing the UN's terms, in some of the most dangerous places on earth, whether that means our concentration camps or on the migratory trail that was indeed created by our walls, where folks, the most vulnerable people on the planet, are preyed upon by organized crime, themselves bad actors who responded to a market opportunity created by our walls, whether physical, technological, bureaucratic, or military. It is our walls that are largely to blame for these problems. Indeed, I conclude in my book that the real crisis we face today is not the number of people striving to join the American experiment or to stay right here where they put down roots, where they've made careers and families, the place they call home. Rather, the crisis is the hardening of the human heart against others' hope for better. Because what we should be asking, what we should have been asking for decades, is why are so many people on the run? And interrogating that and taking responsibility for the role we play in that as a nation. For these are also the same forces that are now strangling our planet to death. Instead, all our government has chosen to ask all these many, many decades is, how do we stop them? But we need to accept and understand that folks should have the right to migrate. They should also have the right to stay home. But those who pull up stakes and run do not do so because they want to. Nobody wants to leave their family, their language, their community, all they've ever known. If they don't have to, it's the rare bird who does, and I'm one of them. No mother wants to put her daughter on the back of La Bestia, the freight train that speeds through Mexico, delivering products to our stores, with a morning after pill in her pocket, knowing she's going to get raped. No family wants to set sail across the Caribbean Sea in a dinghy. They do so because the ocean is safer than the land. No family wants to entrust his beloved child into the hands of a coyote, hoping that that child will make it safely across an increasingly walled off Sonoran desert in 100+ degree heat with a single jug of water. No person wants to scale a wall of blistering hot steel bollards now climbing to 30 feet, knowing that if they tumble over the other side, they might endure multiple broken bones or traumatic brain injury or death. Folks are pulling up stakes and running even into dangers such as these because their homes have been turned into the mouths of sharks, in large part due to our foreign and economic policies dating back decades and centuries, as far back as the Monroe Doctrine, as far back as the settler colonial ideology of manifest destiny. They do so because their hope for better knows no borders, and our cruelty in the face of that hope is simply not okay. So what I learned from researching this book is that the borderlands are everywhere, not just in the Southwest, especially under this regime. The militarization of our borderlands did not begin with 9/11. That was just the excuse to crank up the cruelty and create these paramilitary armies. Nor is the system broken, as pundits and politicians would have us believe. It is working just fine for the demagogues and profiteers who benefit from it, which is why we've seen no human-centered reform to this system in almost 4 decades. We live in a divided nation, in large part due to the way immigration has been weaponized. But even those with the most hardened of hearts, I have learned, will agree that the cruelty is not okay, because it is trouncing all of our values as members of a democratic society as communities of faith, as communities willing to bear witness. It is an infrastructure that was already in place when Trump and co took over the White House the first time. They tried to unleash it then, but were largely thwarted by the courts and their own ineptitude. This time, however, they know what they're doing. Sadly, we have been here before. Bull Connor is back. George Wallace is back. Hitler and Mao, Joe McCarthy, they're all back. Evil walks the earth once more, this time in the form of Donald Trump and Stephen Miller, Thomas Homan, Kristi Noem, Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, Russell Vought, Pam Bondi, and so many others sycophants. They are the worst of the worst. And their cruelty is not okay. But here's where I have hope. We have overcome before, and we will overcome again because we know how. With all of us standing together and strong, throwing ourselves into the gears of this machinery of misery like a billion tiny grains of sand to jam them up, to keep them from turning until these dark days are behind us, just as we did during the family separation crisis of 2018. But now we need to do it en masse, with each of us right now and all over the nation paying their single small part, emulating the helpers already in our midst that are leading the way, like the good folks who are making great trouble that you will meet in my book. We can jam the gears of cruelty as we simultaneously grow a large choir of resistance, singing loud and in glorious harmony. This is not the nation we wish to be. This is not the nation we believe ourselves to be. We are better than the result of the last election, and we don't want to be associated with the indignity and deliberate cruelty of an immigration system that has thrown human rights under the bus and become a dagger plunged into the heart of our democracy. These days will end. They always do. And when they do, we must be ready, and we will be ready if we act today, to build a better nation from the ashes. So my book, Crossing the Line, is an expose. It is a call to action, but it is also a celebration of the good work being done by so many on behalf of human rights, on behalf of civil liberties, on behalf of the law, on behalf of peace and justice for all. It is a manual for a movement for just migration and an invitation to folks everywhere, including y'all, to join the choir of resistance if you haven't already. So I would love to ask you that as you hear from the 100 or so voices in my book, I urge you to remain aware of the one example that causes your heart to beat a little faster, that makes your palms sweat a little bit, then choose to do just that. Because if each and every one of us chooses to do just one thing and commits to it for an hour a week or 7 days a week, our collective collaboration will provide the bulwark we're going to need to get through these next several years. It's going to be hard, but when this dark chapter is finally behind us, it will be us, and we will be ready to take the lead in recreating the nation we wish to be, one that celebrates diversity, equity, and inclusion, one that is characterized by peace, justice, and human rights for all, a true exemplar of freedom and a beacon of hope for all those the world over striving to live free, including right here in these reunited states of America. Thank you. That's me done.
Don't you know it's darkest before the dawn? But this thought keeps me moving on. If we could heed these early warnings, the time is now quite early morning. If we could heed these early warnings, the time is now quite early morning. Those are the words of Pete Seeger. And the words of my new record, whose name is You Gotta Have Hope, and the words of Sarah Towle in the book that she left for us to Community Church of Boston that says, Hope knows no borders. That's great. I also just noticed for the first time, Sarah, your graphic on the front that has birds flying over the border wall. That's a beautiful little sign of hope way up in the right-hand corner. So thank you so much for being with us. And this makes me think of another presenter at Community Church who has passed away about 10 years ago, Barry Crimmins, comedian, who had a whole comedic bit about the Mexican pole vaulting team. And it reminds me of Jimmy Tingle, comedian as well as Jimmy Kimmel, but a local Boston treasure who was at the Wednesday Burlington protest 2 weeks ago and reminded us of his great joke about people coming over the border. He says, "These are the only people who will break into your house so that they can clean your house." I'd like to tell you about that Burlington event that happens. It started happening just on Wednesdays, and last Wednesday it garnered 600 people, and that was in the rain. On a beautiful day, it garners way more than that, and it's also broken into Thursdays. It's a protest right at that same place, the Burlington ICE headquarters. Thursdays, all day Thursdays, by a group called CAIN, C-A-I-N, Greater Sabbath Indivisible Network. And then it's gone to Saturdays, Burlington Mall Road at District Avenue, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Stand with my immigrant friends and neighbors. Stand out for them on a Saturday, which is high visibility for people coming to the Burlington Mall, which is right next to the ICE headquarters. That's filled with irony there. I'll tell you that last Wednesday, John Gibbons, who's been a frequent attendee at our church, we're calling him our affiliate minister, retired UU minister, has been spearheading that protest and joined us for a Zoom last Wednesday, along with Rabbi Susan Abramson, and it was about their experience in organizing these protests at the ICE headquarters. So hope is the working word for the likes of us and millions more. We have back there a beautiful basket that is for some beautiful bills of any size that you might be able to help us with, to help us make this thing happen here. We also have a clipboard that has a place where you can give us your email address and let us keep you abreast of what's going on at Community Church. And there is a lot going on here. There's tons of meetings of all kinds of different groups that organize and activate here in our auditorium. There's also a membership book. If you're interested in joining Community Church, this is not a hard sell while every head is bowed and every eye is closed. Come to the altar and accept our whatever. It's not like that. It's an open invitation for you to join us and to be part of our community and to take part in what we do here, have a voice in our programming and in our community life. So you're welcome to do that. Just talk to me or one of the board members. The membership sign-up book is back in the back, and we are soon going to have another membership welcoming Zoom orientation for new members. That'll happen in a couple of weeks. So with that, I want to invite Rod back for one more song. Thank you again, Rod, for joining us, your busy schedule. Get on Rod's mailing list and find out about all the different places. It's just like remarkable amount of road warrior that Rod has in his shtick. He's all over the place. Thanks again, Rod.
Thank you, Dean. Well, a couple quick things. Anybody who wants to join my email list or anything, it's very easy to do. Just go to rodmacdonald.com. You have to spell it MacDonald, MacDonald. Sarah, that was terrific. It's a subject that is present in the news every day, and something that is very much on my mind. But the detail in your presentation and the way you have put it all together really made a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense as a kind of research project. I think that I would like to write some songs or write some something useful to deal with it in hopefully some way that will help us all going forward.
Rod, I'm a choral soprano, so if you want some backup, I'd be happy to provide it.
That sounds great. I'll let you know about that. This past week, I got a alumni newsletter from Columbia University, where I went to grad school. And a man donated the largest single donation that the law school ever received, $15 million. Not to name a building after himself, but to create a program, a chair, a seat that would study international human rights. I wish I could remember the man's name, but he came to the United States when he was 6 years old as a Chinese immigrant with his parents. And one of the first things that occurred to me is how self-destructive the immigrant policy is, because one of the things that has enabled the United States to succeed so well in moving forward through the years has been the creativity and the hard work that immigrant families have brought to the United States. And if we start excluding them and rely on ourselves, it's like those old European dynasties that couldn't bring themselves to marry anybody outside their own families and ended up dying off of hemophilia. It's going to be to the detriment of the people of the United States if we wall ourselves off from the influx of wonderful ideas and talent that have historically come here. My own grandfather, on my mother's side, came to the United States as a 16-year-old because the Russian army came through his town in Poland and handed him a letter saying he had a report for active military service. He took the letter, went to Rotterdam, took a ship to the United States, and came here. And as a result, there are today many three-family houses in the southern part of Boston, around Dorchester and Mattapan, that he built as a carpenter who put his own crew together, created an entire neighborhood of very valuable housing for the people that were moving to the area. Who knows if that would have happened without him. And so it made me think that what I wanted to do today was sing something that also spoke to the positivity of people coming to America and how meaningful it is. And as it happens, Dean started us off today by singing a couple lines from the beautiful song, Our Lady of the Harbor, which I recorded on my most recent CD because I thought that, because I love the song and because Joe Jenks and I are good pals, but also because I thought that more people should hear it. And I don't know if more people will hear it because of me than because of Joe's own work. Can't say, but I think everybody should hear this song. That if there's a folk standard of our time, this is certainly one of the great ones. So I'd like to sing this song for you. From far away and distant lands, the tempest tossed with hungry hearts and calloused hands, reached for the lights, the torch held high, and cast their gaze upon the lady of the harbor. And so it was with my own kin. They came from Scotland and from England and Poland, their earthly cares strapped on their backs, and cast their gaze upon the lady of the harbor. Well, you folks can sing this with me if you like. And she welcomed them with open arms. She said, "Let my children in. Shine on, shine on, oh, you lady of the harbor." Now we're locking down the borders and filling up the jails, and we say they don't belong. How conveniently do we forget that we've all come to sing the same sweet song? And will the dream survive the strain? Will huddled masses have a chance to learn our sweet refrain? Or will we fall into our fears and turn our backs against the lady of the harbor? And she welcomes them with open arms. She says, "Let my children in." Shine on, shine on, oh, you lady of the harbor. You know, you quoted Pete Seeger there for a minute. I worked a lot with Pete during the 1980s and 90s, especially when I was still living in New York City. And you know, Pete, he always used to say to us backstage, "You're not going to get anything done if you don't have people singing with you. So come on out there. Just don't turn your mics on." And she welcomes them with open arms. She says, "Let my children in." Shine on, shine on, oh, you lady of the harbor. Shine on, shine on, oh, you lady of the harbor.
Thank you, Rod.
Thanks, everybody. Pleasure to join you today, and thank you, Sarah,
Great having you,
for
Rod.
Thank you,
enlightening us
Rod.
all.
It's
Yeah.
been wonderful.
My prayer today goes out to the dozen or so friends that I have here in Boston, undocumented for the most part from villages in El Salvador. My prayer is that they be safe and that they finally find a path that they so deserve. All of them vulnerable, scared, all of them nose to the grindstone, hard workers. Might be in a bakery, might be a roofing work, other construction work, might be a restaurant, might be at Boston Garden switching parquet from hockey to basketball, might be just every aspect of the economy, and some have been here. The first one, maybe 25 years, a bunch of them 10 years, own homes, take care of their family back in El Salvador. And so my prayer is to them, and that we take heart to this message, that there needs to be a path for these people to become full-time, legitimate citizens towards a more perfect union we aspire. And lift our voices from the fire, to quote another songwriter, Gene Rowe. I'd like to see if there's anybody who would like to join us with a question or an observation or a commentary. Could be somebody here in the audience or somebody on the Zoom, or if it's on the YouTube, you could just mention it in the chat, and we would convey it to Sarah or to Rod.
Daniel has his hand raised.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yes, quick question for you. What do you think people who on the street can do here in Boston? What can we do to stop the violent nature of our government in this issue of immigrant rights? There have been things done. Dean mentioned one earlier, but what else can people do? I put out the phone number for the Capitol switchboard. People should call the Congress and senators' offices. But what else do you think we can be doing here in Boston to make a difference?
Yeah, there's when I was there on October 9th, we had a teach-in with the Massachusetts Immigrant and Refugee Action Coalition, with the API's CAN, which is the Asian Pacific Islanders, also coalition. I'm not sure exactly how that translates. Maybe you'll remember, Dean, with several other groups right there on the ground in your midst that are doing the good work right now with Know Your Rights workshops, developing rapid response networks. Luce has a hotline. You want to get yourselves to the Burlington protests. I went when I was there. Super peaceful, super fun, but right on point as well. There is actually a lot going on in the Boston area that that you can fold yourself into. And these folks who are doing the work, they need help. But mainly what we're needing. I mean, there are things for everybody. If you want to be on the front lines and risk arrest, there's a role for you. If you don't, or you aren't able to leave the house for whatever reason, there's a role for you. If you are wanting to teach people or feed people or help get kids to school because their parents are too afraid to leave the house, or deliver groceries to families because their parents are too afraid to go out and shop, there's a role for you. There are churches all over Boston and other places of worship that are beginning to harbor people quietly on the down low, because yeah, there's lots and lots you can do. And I'll turn the mic over to Dean, because I'm sure he's got some more ideas for you.
We have here on the table literature about Luce, who are this rapid response hotline all over the city, and there's Mira, and there's the other groups that Sarah mentioned. That one of them, DSA has an immigration committee that meets here. We'd be glad to tell you about when the next meeting is. We have a question from Calvin, or a comment. Here he is.
Hi, Sarah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm. My name's Calvin Airy, and I'm on the staff of the prison book program down in Quincy, and we send books to prisoners nationwide. And I'd like to inquire if it's possible for us to get a quantity of Crossing the Line, either a donation or at a discount. I could provide the contact information, and Dean has it. So just let us know, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, I would love to answer that question and more broadly as well. I have a program going on. I call it Immigration Study Circles, and I'm offering my book at cost, which is the cost to print and ship. No money in my pocket if purchased by the box. However, which is 24 copies. However, I'm in the States right now, so I can more easily package that up into a smaller number of quantities and send it to you. I do have to cover my costs, if that's okay. If you want just a couple of copies, I'm willing to donate. And this is not just for the prison project, but I do this for schools. I do this for places of worship, for peace and justice groups. I mean, I'm all about raising awareness right now. I'm not doing this to make money, but to make change. And I'm very, very happy and willing to engage with groups, get them my books at a price or a donation that works for them, and then even zoom in and help facilitate group discussions. So Dean can give you my contact information, but I'll just give it to you here. My website is sarahTowle.com, very easy.
Yeah.
And then there's a contact page on my website. So feel free to reach out, and then we can talk about this, or he can give me your contact information. But this goes for everybody. Not just for the person who asked the question.
We'll make it happen, Calvin and I, and
Thank you,
between the community church and the prison book program, we'll make sure we obtain a box.
Excellent.
And maybe we can have it out on the street during some of our upcoming book sales. I wanted to know if the book is translated into Spanish by any chance.
It isn't yet, but I would love help to do that. My publisher is not in a position to do it, so I think it's just something we'll have to do and make it possible. And it's kind of easy these days. We could, I don't know. Let's talk. Somebody who knows Spanish better than me. Let's do it.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer. The Spanish-speaking people should know this same message and know about.
They should.
A majority of people in this country who are understanding of this country's origins in immigration.
Absolutely.
And value.
They should know what they're running into.
Contribution of immigrations, and value the work that's being done on behalf of immigrants.
Yeah.
So that's a terrific thing. Are there any others? Oh, yes. Hi, John.
Thank you. Is it Sarah? Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you.
I learned so much.